Have you ever found yourself constantly changing your profile picture on Instagram or saying no change to computer updates? If you want to find out why you do this or if you're just curious, read on, you've come to the right place. What are cognitive biases? I'm sure you've heard of or at least experienced cognitive biases before. Whether in the constantly changing stock market or those failed saving attempts, some way or another you've probably experienced these things. You probably just didn't notice them like I did until I studied this. I also hope that you will take this video seriously and use it to make better decisions in your future. The simple definition of cognitive bias is a bias that changes your decisions under certain circumstances. What is status quo bias? Do you always order the same dish every time you go to a certain restaurant? Or get frustrated when your computer updates a program, making it look different from the previous version? That's status quo bias at work. Instead of embracing the update that makes your computer faster, smarter, and better, you'd rather stick with that older version. It's more familiar. This doesn't tell the real and hard consequences of status quo bias, but it gives you an example of what it is. It prevents progress, experimentation, and most importantly, ruins your opportunities of getting in an advantageous position. What are the consequences of status quo bias? The consequences of status quo bias are simple. They prevent progress via experimentation and creativity, and ruin opportunities. Think of it this way. You're a Wall Street trader for a big-time firm. It has traded stocks and shares in the same way, by randomly guessing whether a stock is good or a dud. Even when a new kind of trading is invented, trading and keeping track of data on futuristic tablets, nobody changes. Why? It's because of status quo bias. After all, some people got rich trading the old way. Why risk failure with a new option? This is why status quo bias prevents progress. People not wanting to change make a less efficient market, and obviously more advanced computer trading technology will be thrown in the dustbin. Just like that status quo bias ruined a very good opportunity, the chance of getting a faster and more efficient market. How can I prevent status quo bias? Preventing status quo bias is good. It helps speed change, progress, and makes life easier. But preventing status quo bias is easier said than done. It's a mental battle. The first step to defeating status quo bias is framing the default option. It's like making something look bad and attempting to make it look like it was their fault, not yours. Framing status quo is as bad option helps prevent the default option from looking better than the other. Meanwhile, you can't let the number of options influence you because the more complex the decision and the more options you're facing, the more you're likely to side with the status quo. With this in mind, make sure to assign equal weight, making the default option and other options equal, and don't give one an unfair advantage over the other. Think about the pros and cons of each option also helps too. Have you ever wanted to save up for an electric scooter and bought a pack of Pokemon cards? That's mental accounting. It's like mental math, but you're dealing with money. Your brain obviously can't handle that too well. After all, you have to calculate your tax income, your current salary, the cost of the things you want to do. The list goes on and on and on. Mental accounting is also the reason why you end up buying things you know you shouldn't have. What are the consequences of mental accounting? The consequences for mental accounting are no joke. They can make you waste money, lose the big image of your actual financial situation, and ultimately be forced to make tough decisions. Instead of saving up for a car, you might use a $20 bill you found on the sidewalk that you might trade in for a nice dinner. But that $20 bill you paid for the nice dinner could have made buying your car $20 cheaper. Also, the more serious the situation is with credit cards, buying huge amounts with credit cards and not calculating the losses can result in a lot of credit card debt, which everyone knows isn't good. Getting out of debt is impressive and hard, that's for sure. However, there's no point getting out of debt if you get back in it again. That's why preventing mental accounting can have a big impact on your future. To start with, keep a budget. This works for a lot of things. It keeps track of your money and income and also helps with making sure you don't waste money. Another step to take would be to make a plan for unexpected income, like finding a $20 bill on the street. Instead of it being wasted on some glow-in-the-dark yo-yo, it might be put to use in other ways, like saving up for a new car. What is the confirmation bias? Have you ever thought you were always right, even though you knew you weren't right? That's the confirmation bias at work. In short, confirmation bias is a way of knowledge filtering that puts knowledge or ideas that support your supposedly correct thinking and puts the knowledge that doesn't support your thinking in the dustbin. The consequences of the confirmation bias aren't good. To give you an example of the confirmation bias, Google "Are cats cooler than dogs?" The site you visit from that search will always support cats over dogs. See footnote 7. On the other hand, if you Google "Are dogs cooler than cats?" you'll find that the site supports dogs rather than cats. See footnotes 8 and 9. What data you get doesn't matter if you don't want a pet, but if you're looking for a pet or considering getting another one. Depending on which one you Google, your decision may be swayed by the first article, which will then. How do you prevent the confirmation bias? If you can prevent the confirmation bias, that'll be awesome. You'll be a more collaborative person rather than that stubborn person of the group. You'll also become more flexible and accept and think over more ideas rather than saying, "What are you thinking? Seriously?" To start with, minimize cognitive dissonance. To do this, try to avoid information that allies with your beliefs, faiths, or traditions. Second, try to think about alternative ways to think about your information. Is this information biased? Is the information I'm reading supporting one thing over another? This will help you prevent cognitive dissonance and get unbiased reports and data. My interviewee also told me the most common cognitive bias among regular people, not the people working with Bloomberg on huge computer screens. Probably the most common cognitive bias is worrying about big issues with a low probability of actually happening rather than other issues that have a much higher probability of happening. Take mass shootings or terrorist attacks, for example. Although the percentage that you'll be involved in a mass shooting or terrorist attack is very low, you're worried about it more than you should. To prevent this, think about the high risk incidents that could happen and worry less about the lower risk. Anyway, I hope that this article will impact your decision making into the future. At the end of the day, these biases all need to be handled by thinking over the pros and cons and not taking immediate action. Don't forget to get data from unbiased sources, think over your decisions, and don't forget to stay focused.